Dark forests, cliffside cities, and political machinations are all features of the Riverlands, one of the core regions of the world of myth. Hi, I'm Ross Watson, the lead designer of Myth Tales of Legend.
And I'm J.M. DeFoggi, and I'm the lead writer on Myth Tales of Legend.
Right, and we hope you guys are staying safe out there and keeping healthy. So today's episode is all about what, JM?
We are going back to the Riverlands. If you missed part one, go and check that out. But we're going to talk about the Dimwold, River Falls, and the Three Rivers. So kind of our three more parts of the Riverlands.
Last time we covered Brackenberg and Devonshire.
Yep.
Yes, which are both very interesting places, and JM has a very, very evil sense of humor when he designs some of the features of those. So please go check out that last video. We talk about some stuff. I'm like, oh god, that's awesome and yet horrible at the same time. So yes, today though we are going to get into some things that are the rest of the Riverlands. And where are we going to start?
We're going to start off in the Dimwold. So kind of in the core of the Riverlands is this forest, the Dimwold. It is one of the last remnants of what the elves and the Spriggans refer to as the Urwood. So kind of back in the ancient ages of myth when the elves and the dwarves kind of had their kingdoms and their empires that were rising. The elves lived in this forest that covered most of the heartland of the Four Kingdoms that they refer to as the Urwood. And it was alive, and it spoke with the elves, and it worked with the Spriggans. And unfortunately, as the darkness attacked, the wood just kind of shrank, and they broke off into smaller woods, and the smaller woods sort of lost their ability to talk and be sentient. And so there's really these two forests that are left that are large enough that the slumbering spirit of the Urwood still resides there. One we'll talk about later, but today we're talking about the Dimwold, which is where the Dusk Court of the Elves resides.
So the Urwood is kind of this primeval, ancient. The word Urwood is really great for that because it does, bring to mind like the first wood that covered this region. And now is it still sentient? I mean, is it still a
So in my mind, it is one of those things where, maybe in hours of great need, the Dusk Court and the Dawn Court can rally the sentience of the forest. But for the most part, there's just sort of this slumbering sentience. Maybe you feel it when you walk into the Dimwold that there is this alien presence that does not seem to want you there, but isn't really doing anything about it.
So it's not really. I mean, it's sort of only vaguely aware, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And the Dimwold, of course, is a place where there's kind of an ongoing war.
Yes, the Lucanine have just returned in Myth Tales of Legend, and they've returned to the Dimwold, and the first major conflict of their return is between the returning Lucanine and the Dusk Court of the Elves. And so they've been waging this war, and the Dusk Court, they have these magnificent sort of redoubts, and their cities are more built in the caves that kind of reside under the Dimwold. And so there is this sort of above and below war that's going on. The Lucanine initially were able to claim a large amount of territory because the Dusk Elves weren't even necessarily aware that they were there. And now they've started this warfare where like the Dusk Elves come out from below the ground and attack and then retreat, and the Lucanine follow. And so the Dusk Court is starting to look outside of the woods to get help and aid. And we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago how, like in Devonshire, right? Devonshire has the Dusk Glade, which is sort of this embassy of the Dusk Court where they're like, hey, listen, we need help. This is not just our problem. This is soon going to be our problem. So,
like everyone's problem. Yeah. Now, the Dusk Court, so they live primarily underground. Are they kind of root walkers? Do they still like build their their homes and areas out of the living trees, only just the underground portions.
Yeah,
maybe,
they do that. They also sort of see the dusk wall or the dim world as almost sacred to them. So right there are all these beautiful caves underneath the dim world that sort of attracted them, and much, elves tend to build on the natural beauty that's surrounding them. So they've kind of moving from, I like the term root walker a lot, right? These caves that are under the large trees that are kind of these nesting roots that then serve as atriums into kind of the underground realms. I really like that imagery.
Me too. I kind of, in my head, I kind of imagine like there's probably one central point with almost like an underground little lake or pond, and the moonlight shining down on like a single tree growing there in the underground.
We need to get that as a piece of art for this section. I love that. Yeah,
that would be cool. So they live in this region. Are these the glittering caves?
These are the glittering caves. So yeah, the glittering caves are these underground mansion-like caves. The rumor is they're all connected, and that the Dust Court never needs to see the light of the sun if they don't want to. But the caves are really the reason that the Lucanine can't really make headway against the Dust Court. There's not a lot of the Dust Court, right? We've established that the elves are sort of, they're one of the fading species, but you can't pin them down, right? They have ways of closing the caves off. The tree roots that sort of like grow quickly and provide barriers between the caves. Now we should say that the Dust Court are not drow. We are not attempting to make them drow.
No, they're just elves, but they live in a slightly different way than the elves of the Dawn Court.
The Dawn Court. Yeah. Further
now,
to the east.
They also have a gathering place that is above ground, which is called the Twilight Glade.
Yes.
Which is defended by elven archers, and it is a very sacred. Like, this is probably where they have their most formal ceremonies and things of that nature here.
Yes.
Perfectly circular glade in the heart of the forest.
Yeah.
And they have rituals there during the solstices and equinoxes. It is forbidden, it says here, you wrote this.
Yeah.
It is forbidden for non-elves to witness the sacred place. And it is guarded by an elite force called the Falling Blades.
Right, which just to me means that inevitably some group of heroes is going to stumble across this and have to deal with their with the fallout. That would be a perfect complication for a survival role as you're moving through the dim world.
You wander into the Twilight.
Hey, what is this place?
Yeah, I'm sure the Falling Blades would be like, no, you can't be here.
Yeah.
This would be an interesting thing to discuss. Like, do they? I presume there is a kind of a system where there's a warning given, probably at first, and then a demand.
And then
they kill you. Like, it's like there's probably a process they go through. It's not just you set one foot and you're like they're shooting you with arrows. But that's not the only place that's interesting.
No, Moonglow Spire is in there, and that is.
And we talked about that in the Lucanine video. This was a construction that symbolized a pact made by the goddess Luna Canaan, and she sealed away. She exiled her own people to Lucanine through it. They were in the bound world, and as long as the Moonglow Spire's light shone, that's where they were held. It was an emblem of her oath, if you will. But that oath has been broken. The light has gone out. The doors to the Moonglow Spire have opened, and bound worlds, Lucanine, have emerged, which is where all this trouble starts. So I have to assume that the area around Moonglow Spires is probably claimed by, patrolled by, and owned by the Lucanine.
Yeah, it is really their beachhead into the Four Kingdoms, and so it's the most defensible spot for them. That is where the whole of the tribes are, as opposed to sort of the like runner packs that you'll encounter further out in the dim world.
Right. So dangerous. It was our mysterious place to begin with. Now it's like a straight up dangerous place. But I think actually we have discussed that the Lucanine have not really explored the Spire.
No.
So like if you were to somehow negotiate passage with the Lucanine, you as adventurers could go into the Spire and maybe discover a true purpose or a record of Lucanine's intentions or misdeeds, or who knows what the hell. There's all kinds of interesting things you might be able to find inside the Moonglow Spire.
Right, and we, we're going to explore hooks like, do the Three Rivers? Does the Council send you to Moonglow Spire? Or does Tenebrae, or maybe even do the Lucanine reach out? Because maybe they can't get into the Spire, whether it's taboo or fear or this ancient pact put on there by Lunan Kanan. They need someone to explore it. So, right, we took Moonglow Spire off of the map, and we're not going to make it this thing that the players will never see, right? The whole point of the setting book is to say, here are all of the cool places and cool things your players can do while they're there.
I'm really tempted to say that there's probably some kind of doorway or floor or portal that says only those in the form of man can pass this way. Mm-hmm. Which we know that one of the Lucanine can shape change, so that would be interesting. But so that's the Moonglow Spire, and we now want to talk about some of the people that live in the Dimwold. Mm-hmm. We've got Anselm Gemgleam. Am I pronouncing that
That's
correctly?
Right, yeah. He's sort of the heir to the Dusk Court, and much to his parents' dismay, he is the sort of the quintessential foppish layabout, kind of enjoys all of the benefits of being a noble and none of the responsibilities. And already the king and queen of the Dusk Court are really looking to find someone else. They love their son, but he is not the person to lead the Dusk Court at the best of times, and this is not the best of times. So we've established
Prince Gemgleam. Yeah,
that's right. There's an old rite of champions contest which allows the Dusk Court to, through trial by combat or contest, to pick a new heir based off kind of the best of them. And so there is a chance that gets opened up, and that your heroes could wind up in that contest.
That could be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm sure that Gemgleam wouldn't care for that, but
yeah, probably not. I mean, kind
but
of.
He's a fop, so
yeah. If you're the heir apparent and a new heir gets named, things don't go well for you. So
right.
He's probably going to be working against that.
So we also have Frostrime, who is a Spriggan, and she is actually the leader of the Dusk Court Spriggan.
Yes.
What can you tell us about her?
So
or them? I should say them, right? Because Spriggans are.
Yeah, I think it's more them. I know that trees have gender, but I don't think we got too much into that with the Spriggans. We're going more.
Well, Spriggans generally like they consider a little more of a fluid concept.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're plants.
Because they're plants. Yes. So so they wander around the Dimwold because basically they can hear the last whispers and kind of the slumbering whispers of the Urworld's memory, and they try and glean wisdom from this ancient sentience to kind of bring back to the Spriggans. They are sort of worried about all of the threats that are growing in the woods, and the fact that they are sort of the last Spriggan in the wood who actually can hear the Urwood's memories. And so when they pass, they're worried that's it. That
Frostrime is the last one that we know of that can hear this. Exactly. A player character might come along, yes. Spriggan, and might be like, I can also commune.
I feel like that would be a great title, Tree Speaker or Memory Walker or something like that.
Yeah, something like that would be really neat. Like but Dreamer of the Green or something. That would be neat. So that pretty much covers the Dimwold, which is just one small part of the Riverlands.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. I'm pulling in a lot of some of my favorite tropes and kind of twisting them and building on them to try and make the Dimwold a place that you as the GM are going to want to set a story.
It's really cool. I dig it. But let's move on and talk about the River Falls region. It's a city that is quite possibly the most forward-thinking and open-minded in all of the Four Kingdoms.
Yeah,
why is that?
Well, so it's basically the it's the place that you can actually like port up the cliffs on the northern edge of the Riverlands. So it allows goods and supplies from Blackwood or Blackwall and Canis to get to Farronrock. Supporting Farronrock is something that like most of the Four Kingdoms are on board with. So you just have a lot of cosmopolitan trade going on at this one point. It's the one place that is easy, accessible by river. It has good portage up these cliffs. You don't have to go miles or weeks around these bluffs to actually get to the northern part of the Four Kingdoms. So much like any crossroads city, because there's so much trade, they're exposed constantly to new ideas from all over the Four Kingdoms. And they sort of pride themselves on, it's not just goods that are traded here, but it's ideas. There are, salons where people are kind of trading these things back and forth there. They pride themselves on being sort of the at the forefront of like all intellectual thought, whether it's art or engineering or culture. But the problem is, again, going back to that deep theme of myth, they do sit on the door of Farronrock, and so the Bright Legion's like, yeah, we're watching you. We realize that you like this whole idea of sharing knowledge maybe a little too much, so we're waiting to see what might possibly go wrong.
I would love to have my heroes show up and describe to them that you see a full-on ship being, lifted up the cliff by this machinery to the very top, where it's like brought back out over the river and set down. That's an amazing feat of engineering.
Yes.
That's a jaw-dropping, like, what moment that would be really cool.
And it's definitely one of those things. Yeah, and it's one of those things that definitely harkens back to the Age of Legend. Like, maybe Blackwall could repair it, but I don't even know that Blackwall could build it anew.
Now, in a way, you've kind of got like a really interesting version of Tolkien's Lake Town here, which is, I think, is really cool. But also, like, the first thought that comes to my mind is that River Falls is really cool and all, but it is kind of a weak link for Farronrock. Like, if you shut down River Falls, if you somehow stop them from sending supplies, you've cut off a significant portion of any reinforcements or resupply to Farronrock itself.
Yes, and that's one of the like. So I call them the Heart of Darkness, kind of like the darkness's like primary goal in these areas. And the Heart of Darkness is part of the cliff face fell away recently, and they've seen all of these crawler caves, and now they're worried that maybe the darkness has sent a bunch of crawlers to destabilize the front of the cliffs and collapse this machinery, destroying River Falls, and, as you say, cutting off the main supply route for kind of the traditional strong point of light.
So the cliff works are the things that lift the ships and people and goods. But there's also a Bards College here.
Yes. So we have this, right, if it's an area where there's all of this culture coming together and all of these ideas, we have Skalds. I figured this was a perfect place to set kind of this new idea of a Bards College. Basically, it's got a rivalry with the Academy of Learning in Blackwall, and they hold a competition to see who is the greatest skald in all of the Four Kingdoms every year. And they're starting to grow a following. So your skald could be a graduate or have as a patron this Bards College of River Falls, and that could be one of their story hooks kind of moving forward and going out of here. Or, of course, anytime you have a group that is dedicated to gathering stories, gathering tales, putting them to song and poetry, they want to hear new ones. And so this could be a place where your heroes find respite and are able to say, all right, cool, here, we have stories to share. How can you help us?
So if the Academy of Learning is MIT,
yes,
this is kind of Berkeley. I mean,
Berkeley, maybe.
What do they teach? What kind of arts do they teach here?
What is the
Juilliard?
Juilliard. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, sort of Juilliard. But they were. It was sort of founded by people who either felt like the academy was too far away or didn't focus on sort of more of these musical arts, right? The Academy of Learning has a very very STEM focused. This is more your liberal arts academy here in the Four Kingdoms.
So would you find like orators and singers? You would find
poets. You would find
poets and musicians and painters, maybe
painters,
as well?
like people like public speakers, like rhetoric. I mean, the Council of the Three Rivers has several graduates from the college of the Bards College because they know how to speak. They know how to speak to public and get like people rallied behind them. So. This is also
the party school.
Yeah, definitely compared to the. But you know what? With probably at least 90% less explosions than at the Academy of Learning. So
it is hard to blow up a painting or a poem.
It is. I mean, it's possible. We're not putting it past heroes, but
right. And we've also the Bards College is cool, but we also have the Merchants Guild headquarters, and this is important for a number of reasons. It is why is the Merchants Guild important?
Well, it's sort of, I mean, one, it can be a quest giver. You have plenty of people who are interested in the monetary values that sort of flow through River Falls. The other reason is that, right, anytime you have people of kind of importance who are have money, they have interests, and so heroes will right, caravan guards, caravans that go missing, money that goes missing, right? Like the merchants guilds are people who can get your players to other parts of the Four Kingdoms and provide sort of rewards for that. So
the guildmaster Tomlin, he's just kind of started this thing out, and in my head, this is basically like the Wall Street. It's like it's the origin of Wall Street. He's the Gordon Gekko, kind of getting everyone together. Go, let's make some fat stacks of coin, and because they are technically outside the council's control here.
They are, and that's why they built it here. And it is a new guild, right? It's not like merchants kind of coming together and working together to kind of help each other and set prices. This is one of those things the rest of the Four Kingdoms are keeping a pretty wary eye on. And Guildmaster Tomlin knows that this is new, it's fragile, and it takes kind of a firm hand, and maybe the call for people who can do things to make sure the guild's interests stay fluid, as it were.
Speaking of that, Maestro Notefall is the head of the Bards College. She is a fiery elf from the Watching Room, which is pretty far away.
Yes, she's a member of the Dawn Court, so yeah, it's pretty far to the east.
She's like, yeah, she went a long way from home, but now she's in charge of the Bards College, and she used to be a hero. She used to be an adventurer.
Yep, and she did not take an arrow to the knee. Like she can still dance. But it also, she hears stories, she takes them in, she kind of helps poets and artists and painters kind of find their inspiration. But that also means, one, she's a good source of information for GMs, right? Hey, we heard about this thing, we thought maybe you guys could do something about it, kind of a thing. She could be a patron to skalds or other characters who sort of have an interest in the arts, but also she has made the college a safe place for heroes to come rest, as she will trade room and board for good stories from the road for more fodder for the tales that are coming out of the college. So she can be a great patron.
I need you for a 4-hour lecture, and then you can spend the night.
That's right.
I need you to come in and share your experiences with the poets, because they need inspiration.
That's right. Can you describe that grubber to us? Because we're trying to like capture them in paint, and so we just need you to stand there and talk about what grubbers are like, and wander around and be like, no, those tusks are not big enough, or right. Their weapons were much larger as I remember them.
And that leads us to the Three Rivers, which is the wealthiest city in all of the Four Kingdoms.
Right. It sits at kind of the monetary heart of the Four Kingdoms. Now, kind of the saying is gold flows faster than water through the Three Rivers. Right. They are the most, as Ross said, the wealthiest here. They also kind of are still living with this stigma of the fact that the old Three Rivers, right, the Three Rivers of the Age of Legend, they were home to the Deaf Council, the ones that were like, I don't really know that this call from Farronrock is that big of a deal. And it was their dragging of their feet that allowed the darkness to really just sort of rage through the Four Kingdoms. And so they are attempting to put more distance between themselves and this Deaf Council of the previous age. And so each species has a seat, at least one seat on the council. There's even a seat sort of held in absence for the Tavians. Like, no Tavian has yet shown any interest in stepping into that role. With the arrival of the Lucanine, the Council of the Three Rivers is facing kind of their first crisis. And so with this idea of the Deaf Council not doing enough, there's always the worry that they may react, they may overreact in an attempt to sort of distance themselves from that.
So my question is, how powerful is the council? Are they the ruling body of the Three Rivers?
They're in charge of the Three Rivers.
I'm sorry, the Riverlands.
Yeah, and the Riverlands sort of all answers to them. They're maybe the most cohesive of the Four Kingdoms, whereas Blackwall is a bunch of city-states, or cities and towns.
One city and a bunch of smaller
exactly.
towns.
Yeah. And ancient Canis kind of, they're like, yeah, we own all of this desert and small cities, but really, there's all of these little power plays by various, viziers and lords, and Haldor is like Farronrock and a bunch of wandering tribes. The Three Rivers is the closest to like a fantasy kingdom in the fact that the council rules the Riverlands. Now, how well they enforce it the further out you get from Three Rivers is a matter of debate, of course, but
yeah, because their authority does not actually extend to the merchants' headquarters in River Falls. So is that because it's geographical, or
a little geographical?
Kind of trick of law?
I think a little geographical. I think the local officials of River Falls are kind of like, hey, the merchants are bringing us enough money that we don't care. Like, just kind of go do your own thing. And there's also the fact that, right, in the Four Kingdoms, aside from Farronrock, there's no one that has like a standing army. So really, the council of the Three Rivers and the Riverlands, they have sheriffs that kind of go out and help enforce what little laws that they have. But really, because all of the wealth flows in and out of the Three Rivers, the Riverlands is sort of like, they make sure that the rafts run on time. They make sure that, the trade from River Falls down to Devonshire, that's sort of happening. They hire out caravan guards.
Now, not unlike the Roman Senate, they meet in what's called the Forum. Mm-hmm. It is an island where all three rivers join. And there is it kind of a castle? I mean, what is it?
I see it as kind of, so there's this open top, there's a building. It's not a castle. It's not a military building in any sort of way. In fact, it's got some of the relics and artifacts that are kind of held there from the Age of Legends. But it is a place where all of these councils and all of these guilds and all of the representation of people from throughout the Riverlands, the small towns who send representatives who may petition the council for aid or for oversight, this is where the heart of the power of the Riverlands is, and it's sort of unique in the Four Kingdoms, because again, right, Canis is sort of all of these different independent city-states. Blackwall has really one powerful place that they call their own, and the rest is sort of wilderness and isolated towns, and Haldor is either nomadic tribes or the military outpost of Farron Rock. So the Forum
Blackwell's got its own council.
It does, yeah, but so, it's limited really to the city as opposed to the Riverlands.
It's the city council as opposed to the nation council.
Yeah.
But to be a councilman, I would imagine a councilman of Blackwell is important, but a councilman of the Riverlands is an order of magnitude more powerful than that.
Right, because in the Riverlands, your individual towns and cities still have village and city councils, but this is the one that kind of oversees all of them. So you're right. A council member of the Riverlands is going to be afforded respect no matter where they go in the kingdom, whereas the council member of Blackwall is, they're probably big stuff in their district, and they probably have some weight on city decisions, but really they're kind
outside of that, they're more like an alderman. It's like
exactly.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, congratulations. Great. So you have more responsibility. All right, cool.
Yeah, because you're there. But that being said, I have many questions about the council, but I think we'll move on because there is also the Three Bridges region, and I want to hear about this.
So we have the Three Rivers, right? The city's called Three Rivers. There are the three rivers that join together, and the city, because of that, is sort of spread out between the banks of these three rivers, and there are these three massive bridges from the Age of Steel. They've stood for, now that we're going into our third age that these bridges have stood, and they seem to be crafted from very delicate silver. Like they look magnificent, the river sparkling underneath, the sun hitting them from above, but each are wide enough that 6 wagons can kind of cross back and forth over them.
These are serious bridges.
They're serious bridges. They also somehow resist icing up. They're never slippery, no matter how much it rains or how wild the river is. And it is said that no creature of darkness can cross the bridge, but no one in recent memory has actually brought a threat to the bridge and tried to force them across. Granted, there's also the fact that, there's 3 rivers. So there are ports along the river, where people...
Even if it was true, it wouldn't stop someone.
Exactly. If you wanted into the 3 rivers, you could probably... You definitely could still get threats into the city.
But it might be true.
It might be true.
It still might be true.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's cool. I like the idea that the bridges are, just these massive, amazing feats of engineering from the Age of Legend, and we're all like, how did they do that?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why, we talk about the cities that got destroyed during the Age of Steel and the Age of Legend. There's a reason why the Three Rivers keeps coming back, because one, travel-wise, it's a hub. But 2, you have these artifacts that aren't found anywhere else in the Four Kingdoms. Why wouldn't we just rebuild here? Because look at what we have going for us.
Right. I imagine the Forum has numerous little artifacts and things of that nature. But this is all actually kind of under threat from the Lucanine. We talked about the Lucanine and the Dimwolds, and that is a problem because they're actually at war. But they're also pushing this direction towards Three Rivers.
For kind of for the same reason, right? The chief Sparmane of the Lucanine, he knows we can't go back to Boundworld.
He's the chief of a clan, just one clan.
One clan.
There's multiple clans,
right? Yeah. And so he knows that, hey, we can't go back. So once we are realized as a threat, people are going to come for us. And so he set his eyes on Three Rivers. And if he can take Three Rivers, if he can either get Three Rivers to acknowledge them and their claim on the forest, or if he can take Three Rivers, his people are going to be safe. Right.
I was reading that someone wants to invite him to speak before the council. And that's very interesting because on the one hand, it's nice to have a cool, non-war opportunity to settle this. But on the other hand, I can imagine there's a great deal of concern, especially in the dim world, of them like, yeah, sure, you can stay, cool, just and the elves would be like, wait, what about us?
Exactly.
So you can have quite a bit of political intrigue around a werewolf invasion, which is kind of awesome, and I dig that.
Well, and think about it, if Sparmane gets this opportunity to speak before the council, right? He doesn't speak for all of the Lucanine. So what does that mean for the rest of the tribes? Did he just sign on to sort of subjugate the rest of his people under the auspice of this treaty? Are they inviting him to the council because it's going to be the easiest place to attack and kill him? I mean, there's just
there's always that one guy, too. There's always, the one councilman who's like, well, if we let him in, we'll have to have an unholy council member. A grubber council member. Right. And a crawler council. When are we going to invite the tailless to come speak before us?
Right.
Slippery slope guy, right? With his terrible argument. But yeah. This could be, actually, I love opportunities to do kind of that cool, like, I argue my case before the August body kind of things. And that's what's cool about this idea. But the Lucanine are like a real clear and present danger as well. So it's not just political maneuvering. There's also probably a lot of people going, well, if we don't talk to them, this could get ugly really fast. Because as you say, we just have some sheriffs. And Farron Rock is not necessarily right next door.
No, not at all.
So, yeah. And the Bright Legion, of course, they're going to chime in, too, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting. I really like that setup that you've got there. The wolves on the borders.
Now I want to add a council member who's the old deaf war drum beating member of the Bright Legion, like the honorary council seat that they keep for the Bright Legion, and everyone's just sort of is like,
That would be a lot of fun. But I think that's going to wrap us up on the Riverlands.
Yeah.
We've actually covered the whole kingdom in 2 episodes. But this is just one of 4 kingdoms.
That's right.
So stay tuned. We're going to be talking more about the other 4 kingdoms of myth and other regions and other secrets as we go on with our Campfire Tales. As always, please be sure to drop a comment if you have anything you'd like to ask questions about, hear us talk about more, or if you want us to change our focus to a different area maybe of myth. We love reading those. Also, it's important to know that right now Ulysses has launched Tharcold, which is a brand new setting for Torg Eternity through Game on Tabletop. And tell us about Tharcold, JM, really quick.
I'm really looking forward to the Tharcold book. So the Tharcold book is one of the cosms of Torg, and it is... Right, Torg, each cosm is sort of a different genre. So on the surface level, you have kind of this post-apocalyptic, demon-infested wasteland, like Mad Max meets, Constantine.
It's like Hellraiser plus Terminator plus Mad Max. There's more, but it's bizarre.
It is
cyber demons and nuclear wastelands
and more psionics, and the fact that like one of my favorite parts is the invasion kind of went wrong in Tharcold because Russia was willing to sort of go nuclear, and the High Lord seat is sort of up for grabs a little bit, and there's someone making a power play for the High Lord status who is not a cyber demon. He's actually from Core Earth, and I think that's a really interesting a really interesting sort of twist.
So if you want to know more about Torg Eternity, of course, JM runs his game, The Four Horsemen, right here on this channel. I'm also in that game. There is the Ulysses Worlds channel, which also covers lots of different worlds and things that Ulysses is doing. We have shows for The Dark Eye and Aventuria and for Myth Dawn of Heroes, which is the board game connected to this exact role-playing game right here. Many other things you can check out on our channel. Thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And until next time,
keep telling stories.